She left, and now, after weeks or months of silence, she is standing at your door again. Before you say a single word, before you let her back into your life, you need to hear this. There is one mistake almost every man makes in this exact moment, and it is the reason so many second chances turn into second heartbreaks. The Stoics warned about it over 2,000 years ago, and today, we are going to make sure you never fall into it. Welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, this is a place where we take the ancient wisdom of Stoic philosophy and apply it directly to the modern battlefield of love, loss, and self-respect. Today we are talking about one of the most emotionally loaded situations a man can face, the return. She comes back. Maybe she says she made a mistake. Maybe she says she misses you. Maybe she says nothing at all and just shows up, expecting you to understand. And in that moment, something dangerous happens inside most men. The walls come down too fast. The self-respect that was slowly rebuilt during her absence gets traded away in an instant. All because the heart remembers the good times faster than the mind remembers the pain. This video is not about telling you to reject her. It is not about turning you into a cold, unfeeling statue. It is about making sure that if you let her back in, you do it as a man who has learned something, not as a man who has learned nothing. Stay until the end, because the mistake we are about to describe is one that even good, strong, disciplined men fall into without realizing it. Epictetus once said that it is not events that disturb people, but the judgments they make about those events. When she comes back, your mind will immediately start making judgments. It will tell you that this is fate, that this is proof she truly loves you, that this is the reward for all the patience you showed while she was gone. And here is the first problem. The moment you let those judgments run wild without examining them, you have already lost your footing. The Stoic mistake, the one this entire video is built around, is this: abandoning your center the instant she reappears. It is forgetting everything you learned about detachment, self-discipline, and inner steadiness the second an external event, her return, appears to offer you what you wanted. This is the trap, not that she came back, not that you feel joy. The trap is losing yourself in that joy so completely that you undo months of growth in a single afternoon. Think about what it actually took for you to survive her absence. There were nights where the silence in the apartment felt unbearable. There were mornings where you reached for your phone out of habit, expecting a message that never came. Slowly, painfully, you built a version of yourself that did not depend on her presence to feel whole. You started waking up earlier. You started training your body, sharpening your mind, tightening your discipline. You stopped checking her social media every hour. You stopped waiting. This was not comfortable growth. This was growth forged in absence, and it is one of the most valuable things a man can build because it proves that his peace does not live inside another person's decisions. Now she is back. And the mistake begins the second you decide, consciously or not, that all of that internal work was simply a means to an end, a temporary state you can now discard because the goal has been achieved. This is where the Stoics would stop you cold. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that external things are not truly his to control, that people, circumstances, and outcomes exist outside the boundary of what he could command. Her leaving was outside your control. Her coming back is also outside your control. What has always been inside your control is how you respond, how you carry yourself, and what standards you hold regardless of what she does. The mistake is thinking that because the external circumstance changed in your favor, you no longer need the internal discipline that got you through the hard part. Let's talk about what this mistake actually looks like in real life, because it rarely announces itself with a warning label. It looks like immediately canceling plans you made for yourself just to be available for her. It looks like forgiving without any real conversation about what happened, sweeping months of pain under the rug, because the fear of losing her again outweighs the need for honesty. It looks like softening boundaries you swore you would never soften again, the ones about respect, about communication, about how you deserve to be treated. It looks like performing gratitude you do not actually feel, thanking her for coming back as if her return was a gift, rather than simply the outcome of her own choices and circumstances. It looks like erasing your own growth from the story, quietly deciding that the man who learned to stand alone is no longer necessary now that she is standing beside you again. Here is the deeper truth the Stoics understood that we so often forget in matters of the heart. Attachment to outcomes is the root of suffering. Not attachment to people, not love itself, but attachment to a specific outcome. The idea that your peace and worth are contingent on her staying, on her loving you the way you want, on this reunion going exactly as you imagined it during those lonely nights. When you attach your entire sense of security to the fact that she came back, you have handed her the same power she had before, maybe even more power, because now you have proof that losing her devastates you, and that her return can instantly undo all your progress. That is not strength. That is a man who built a fortress and then left the gate wide open the moment someone knocked. Seneca wrote extensively about the difference between reacting and choosing. He believed that between any stimulus and our response there exists a space, and in that space lies our freedom. When she reaches out, when she stands in front of you, when she says the words you have been waiting to hear, there is a space. In that space is where the Stoic mistake either happens or gets avoided. If you skip that space entirely and simply react with total emotional surrender, you have proven that despite all your discipline, you are still fundamentally controlled by external validation. But if you pause, even for a moment, and choose your response deliberately, you remain the author of your own life rather than a character reacting to someone else's plot. This does not mean you interrogate her at the door with a checklist. It does not mean you perform coldness to prove a point. Performed coldness is just another form of losing control, another reaction dressed up as discipline. True Stoic steadiness is quiet. It does not need an audience. It does not need to punish her to prove it exists. It simply means that you greet her, return the same way you would greet any major life event, with clarity, with presence, and with an unwillingness to abandon the values you have spent months rebuilding. Cleanse. So what does it actually look like to get this right? It starts with acknowledging your emotions honestly, instead of suppressing or exaggerating them. Stoicism has been misunderstood for decades as an instruction to feel nothing. That is not what Zeno, Epictetus, or Marcus Aurelius taught. They taught that emotions are natural, but that the judgments and stories we attach to those emotions determine whether they control us or inform us. Feel the relief, feel the flicker of hope, feel even the anger that might rise up alongside the joy. But do not let any single one of those emotions write your next move for you. Observe them the way you would observe weather passing through, real, present, and temporary. Second, ask yourself what actually changed. This is perhaps the most practical, unglamorous, and necessary step, and it is the one most men skip because it feels unromantic. Before you fold her back into every part of your life, before you hand back the same level of trust, access, and vulnerability you once gave freely, ask what is actually different this time. Not what she is promising, but what has demonstrably changed in behavior, in circumstance, in the patterns that led to the separation in the first place. The Stoics valued reason over impulse, and reason demands evidence, not just intention. Words are easy in a moment of high emotion. Sustained change is not. Third, protect the identity you built while she was gone. This is the heart of the entire lesson. The version of you that emerged during her absence, the one who trained his mind, disciplined his body, and stopped outsourcing his peace to another person's presence, that version of you does not need to disappear now that she has returned. In fact, that version of you is precisely why she may have come back in the first place. People are drawn to stability, to a sense of grounded self-possession, far more than they are drawn to desperation. If the moment she returns, you instantly regress into old patterns of chasing, over-apologizing, and abandoning your own needs to accommodate hers, you are not just risking the relationship, you are risking the erosion of everything you built in her absence. And that erosion, once it starts, is very difficult to reverse. There is also a subtler danger here, one the Stoics were particularly attuned to, and that is the danger of pride disguised as forgiveness. Sometimes a man lets a woman back in too quickly, not out of genuine peace, but out of a need to prove that he is the bigger person, that he can rise above the hurt, that he is somehow superior for not holding a grudge. This is not Stoic virtue, this is ego wearing the mask of virtue. True forgiveness, the kind the Stoics respected, comes from clarity, not from a desire to appear noble. If you forgive too fast, simply to avoid the discomfort of an honest conversation, you have not practiced wisdom, you have practiced avoidance. Panja. Let's talk about boundaries specifically, because this is where the mistake becomes most visible in day-to-day life. A boundary is not a punishment. A boundary is simply a clearly stated condition under which you are willing to continue investing your time, your trust, and your emotional energy. When she was gone, you likely developed new boundaries almost by necessity, new sleep schedules, new priorities, new relationships with friends and family that had been neglected. The mistake is dissolving all of these boundaries overnight, simply because she is back in the picture. A man who maintains his boundaries after a reunion is not being cold. He is communicating through action rather than words that his standards did not disappear along with the loneliness. And ironically, this is often what earns lasting respect and lasting love, far more than instant, unconditional surrender ever could. Marcus Aurelius kept a private journal, what we now call meditations, specifically because he knew that the pressures of his position, the temptations of power, ego and external validation could pull him away from his principles if he did not actively reinforce them. You do not need to be an emperor to learn from this. When she comes back, consider keeping your own version of that discipline. Write down what you have learned. Write down the standards you promised yourself you would not abandon. Revisit them not as a rule book to enforce on her, but as a mirror to check yourself against, especially in the early days when the emotional high of reunion makes it easy to forget everything that came before. MBG. It is also worth addressing the fear that drives most of this mistake in the first place. The fear that if you do not immediately give her everything, she might leave again. This fear is completely understandable. Nobody wants to relive that pain. But here is the Stoic reframe. If the only way to keep someone is to abandon your own values, your own peace, and your own boundaries, then what you are keeping is not a healthy relationship. It is a fragile arrangement built on your own diminishment. The Stoics taught radical acceptance of what is outside our control, and whether she stays this time is ultimately outside your control. What is inside your control is whether you remain a man worth staying for, a man with a spine, with standards, with a life that does not collapse the moment someone walks back into it. There is a quiet kind of power in this approach that is easy to underestimate. When you greet her return with steadiness instead of desperation, something shifts in the entire dynamic. You are no longer the man who was left and is now grateful to be chosen again. You are a man who has built a life, who has grown, and who is now making a deliberate, examined choice about whether to include her in that life going forward. This is not about playing games or pretending indifference. It is about genuine internal alignment, where your actions match your values instead of being hijacked by relief and old longing. And as we close, remember this: the mistake is not feeling joy when she comes back. The mistake is not being human. The mistake is letting that joy erase the discipline, boundaries, and self-respect you spent so long rebuilding. The Stoics never asked us to stop loving. They asked us to love without losing ourselves in the process, to hold both connection and self-possession in the same hand without letting one crush the other. If she is truly coming back for the right reasons, she will not need you to abandon the man you became in her absence. She will want to know that man, respect that man, and build something new alongside him. And if she cannot do that, then her return was never really about growth in the first place, and your steadiness will have protected you from repeating a story that was already written once before. The video gave you clarity. If it put words to something you have been feeling but could not quite articulate, do us a favor and hit that like button. It genuinely helps this message reach more men who need to hear it. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already, because we release new Stoic wisdom for real modern struggles every single week. And turn on notifications so you never miss the next lesson. Drop a comment below and tell us, have you ever made this mistake before? Letting someone back in too fast and losing the ground you had built? Your story might be exactly what another man in the comments needs to read today. See you in the next video.